know about all of you, but I always feel a little bit down this time of year. After the holidays have ended, after the lights and the decorations have come down, after that countdown and promise of New Year's, that celebration time gives way to dates like today, January 13th, a date that holds nothing particularly special or celebration worthy. There's a letdown as I shift out of celebration mode and accept that this is life. And this will be our lives for the next few months. It'll be dark, it'll be cold, and spring will come, but not anytime soon. Correspondentially, this time of year can in fact be compared to the tiny seed that you hold in your hand. This tiny, hard, lifeless mustard seed that Jesus speaks of in our parable today. Life is not yet flowing through this mustard seed. Just as the earth outside is frozen and still, as the sun shines but does not give off warmth to heat the earth, to allow water to flow so that things might grow, so that life might be activated. This connection between the lifelessness of winter and of the mustard seed have made for me it the perfect subject to preach on this uncelebration-worthy day in January. While it's easy to marvel at the wonders of life and creation in the springtime as the flowers are blooming, and it's easy to marvel at the wonders of the spiritual life when we are experiencing resurrection, when we are feeling the presence of God, the flow of providence, it is perhaps not so easy to marvel when we stare only at a small, hard, lifeless seed. And perhaps on our spiritual journey, it is not so easy to marvel at God's activity in our lives when all we have is, as Swedenborg puts it, the smallest possible trace of goodness within. When we are at the very beginning of a cycle of regeneration, holding only the promise and the possibility of new life to come. Now, I know many of you, and I know that your faith is much larger than a mustard seed, that you have made progress on the spiritual journey, that your seed has started to take root, it has started to sprout, and even begun to flower. But simultaneously, I believe that on the spiritual journey, the process of regeneration goes through seasons, just like the seasons in our natural world, and that we are often brought back again to the beginning, brought low, brought into periods of doubt and uncertainty, into periods of time when perhaps we intellectually still know that there is God, that we are on a spiritual path, but we don't really feel it. When the light of the sun shines on us, but we do not feel warmth. Seasonal affective disorder is a real thing that affects a lot of people. All levels of our being are inherently connected. So for many of us, as the natural world enters this time of hibernation, of cold and darkness, on an emotional and spiritual level, we feel these states as well. I know I do. These states when it seems that all we have, that all we can hold on to of God is a tiny, lifeless seed. I want to read to you again the quote that Denise read from Swedenborg this morning. The mustard seed is the good that we have before developing a spiritual orientation. It is the smallest of all the seeds, because we suppose that we do good on our own. Anything we do on our own is evil through and through. But since we are engaged in the process of being reborn, we have a trace, the smallest possible trace of goodness. Later, as faith becomes more closely connected with love, it grows larger, a plant. When the connection is completed, it turns into a tree, and then the birds of the heavens, which here as before are true ideas, nest in its branches. One of the central tasks in the process of spiritual rebirth is to come to realize that the good that we do is not our own, that it is God working in us. And this task is accomplished, whether we like it or not, through the one primary obstacle or pitfall on the spiritual life: the temptation, when we are given goodness, to let our egos swell, to start to think, wow, I am good. Wow, I might even be better than those other people. I must be set to join one of those highest heavens. And I'm so glad I'm more involved than them. Now, we all need a healthy self-esteem. This central work of regeneration is also, as many holy things are, a paradox. We need to shine our light in the world. We need to believe we can do good and get out there and do it. But there's this subtle but oh so important distinction that we must learn if we are to truly flourish. That all we have is a gift. That it is not us, it is not inherently our creation. If we don't get this at least a little bit, our egos will swell until they burst. Our egos will need constant reinforcement when we inherently fall short or don't meet the expectations that we hold for ourselves. Our egos will start wars, they will hurt people, they will cause us to suffer. They will drive us apart as a human family, destroy the goodness that God wishes to do in our lives and in our world. Without this understanding, we create and perpetuate hell, now and into the next life. And so the Lord has a way to help us battle this primary temptation on the regenerative process. And it manifests like a day in January, like that tiny hard seed you hold in your hand. The Lord brings us into these states of light without warmth, of doubt and uncertainty, when our faith, our experience of God's activity in our lives is only as small and as tiny as a mustard seed. In these states, we are only allowed a trace, because if we were to have any more than that, we would quickly fall back into the temptation of thinking it was our own. So instead, in this place, we are brought so low as to believe we do have nothing, that nothing belongs to us. And all that we see and experience and feel is a gift. A gift to be used and passed on, not a gift to hoard and measure our worth by. Just look closely at that tiny seed in your hand. Human beings did not create those. And in the same way, we did not create ourselves. We did not choose to add this little bit of flesh here or to imprint this inclination or this talent. We did not choose who our parents would be or our children. We did not choose this country that we were born into, this time or this place. But we are here. It truly is a miracle. It is a gift. It is not our doing. And God's life made and makes it possible. If we are to flourish fully, if we are to receive the abundance that the Lord might offer us, might invite us into, if we are to receive the greatest amount of goodness possible, we can't live with this falsity, parading around as if we are the ones who brought this world, this moment into being. The small seed that's in your hand will grow with sun and warmth, with water and soil. It contains within it a full blueprint for a mustard tree that will stand maybe 10 feet tall and look something like the picture inside your bulletin. That tiny hard seed will be beautiful. It will be a growing, living thing that will be of use in the world, that will have branches and leaves where birds of the air will be able to light and rest. My friends, while it is not fun, while it is not an occasion for cookies and parties, while it is dark and cold and somewhat lifeless, thank God for January 13th. Thank God for the mustard seed of faith, the ways that the Lord brings us low, brings us back to the beginning, so that we don't become giants of the earth, so we don't become lost in our own self-aggrandizement. Each time we return to this low point, to this small seed, we are returning to the truth that the goodness that the Lord gives us is not our own. And each time we are getting the message a little bit more deeply, a little bit more clearly, so that we can begin again practicing, softening our edges, deepening our humility, to be able to receive more and more of the Lord's goodness, to spiritually flourish, to do and be all that we might, and to become that particular kind of angel that the Lord is seeking to create, to inhabit and serve that particular corner of heaven. I invite you to marvel at this stage in the spiritual life, even in those moments when you are brought low. To know that God is present, not always just when the flowers are blooming or when God feels close, but when all that we have is the tiniest of seeds, when our faith is just at the beginning. And yet we know that within that seed contains the blueprint, the design of a fuller and larger life entirely present within, and that it will grow, and that it will be the Lord's doing.